NPR is suing President Trump and the Trump administration for cutting off its taxpayer-funded gravy train. The lawsuit is in response to Trump's executive order accusing public media outlets like NPR and the public broadcasting system of pushing partisan propaganda on our dime.
That's right. NPR CEO Catherine Maher calling it a, quote, clear violation of the Constitution and the First Amendment's protection for freedom of speech, end quote. And she deems it, quote, an affront to the rights of NPR, end quote.
To be clear, this is not about freedom of speech. It is about keeping taxpayer dollars from going to clearly biased outlets led by CEOs like that woman who Texas Congressman Brandon Gill gloriously smacked down in a House hearing back in March. And he joins us now. Congressman, it is fantastic to see you. All in public broadcasting federal funding is a little more than $500 million in fiscal year 2025. Not a lot of money, but one dime is too much for that and what they are spewing in terms of propaganda.
That's right. Thanks for having me on. Remember, what you hear from Catherine Maher today is the last dying whimper of an antiquated organization that's about to have their corporate welfare pulled away from them. The American people are sick of their tax dollars funding radical left, wildly Marxist news outlets who hate the very things that this country was built on. During that hearing, I had the chance to ask her, do you believe that, for instance, America is addicted to white supremacy? She said, well, you know, I didn't really say that. Yes, you did actually say that. These people are insane, and we shouldn't be giving them our tax dollars. We're finally going to stop that. I'm so glad that we have a president who is taking this seriously. This is something that Republicans have been talking about for decades, and President Trump is finally doing it. And I can tell you, we're going to follow it up with Congress with rescission bills that permanently pull this money back.
You know, they've already begun with a lawfare, of course. NPR and 3 local stations have sued the Trump administration trying to maintain their holding on taxpayer funds, and ignoring the fact that they have violated their own charter, which commands for them to inform the American public. Now, informing is not propaganda. Informing is getting both sides of the issue. Yuri Berliner, who was an senior editor of NPR for about 20 years, he wrote a tell-all piece in the Free Press admitting that his 87 coworkers were all registered Democrats. There were 0 Republicans on board. Is that informing the public?
No, that's not informing the public. That is taxpayer-funded propaganda, the same kind of propaganda you would expect in communist China or in North Korea. We don't need that here in the United States. We don't need state-sponsored media. Remember, this is the same outlet that deliberately chose not to cover the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, saying in their own words that it was nothing more than a distraction. In their own words, the vast majority of the people who work at NPR are Democrats. They routinely bash Republicans and run cover for the other side of the aisle. And then they have the gall to come to us and ask us to give them more and more taxpayer dollars every single year. You know, we're going to end this, but they've set this up in a way to make it as difficult as possible for Congress. We fund NPR 2 years in advance, for instance. We end up funding local radio stations and TV stations that are required to purchase NPR's content. But we're done with it. We've had enough of it.
They should be saving their dollars rather than using the money to sue the Trump administration. They found money for that now, didn't they? So let's move on to another cringy moment from Democrats. Maryland Congressman Glenn Ivey spent Memorial Day weekend in El Salvador, trying and failing to visit the alleged gangbanger and accused wife-beater Kilmar Abrego Garcia in prison. He wasn't happy when he was unsuccessful. Watch this.
They knew we were coming, and they knew why we were coming. And then when we actually got to the jail, they said something about going to get a permit, going all the way. Santa Ana's a long way, about an hour-and-a-half drive from San Salvador. They said, go back to San Salvador and get a permit. And I won't tell you what I said, but I mean, it's, you know, ridiculous that an international delegation would get that kind of treatment.
Rather than remembering those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. There was that, Congressman.
That's right. You know, this is such a bizarre and grotesque affinity that Democrats have for illegal alien gangbangers who never should have been in our country in the first place. This is a guy who has been suspected of human trafficking. He's a known member of MS-13 that the president finally got the heck out of our country. And yet you have Democrats who are bending over backwards to go to foreign countries to visit these aliens and do what? To have lunch with them, to talk about the weather, to talk about sports? What do you want to do? I think it's disgusting that these people are going after these illegal aliens in the way that they are. And let me tell you, this shows such a difference between what the Republicans and what the Democrats are trying to do. We're looking out for Americans. Democrats are looking out for illegal aliens.